Stick to that.
It's a good tuna, but I think I paid too much.
I always wear my mask and wash my hands after going home.
I am the king of the ring.
Welcome to the Japan What Podcast, episode 206. And I'm your host, Matthew P.M. Bigelow.com. And I'm coming at you from the Aizumicho Studios in Shinjuku, Tokyo, Japan. The armpit of Asia. Covering Japan Society 5.0, the supply chain wars, rising conflict in the Indo-Pacific, migration, depopulation, and more. We thank you for coming along the adventure. Adventure. That is today's show. Busy day as usual. There's a lot of transformation happening in Japan right now, but as more things change, the more they stay the same. I'll try to go through this quickly. There's these things called My Number cards. And the My Number is this thing made by the government, the Kojin Bango, personal identity number. It's your digital ID. This thing is supposed to make things digital and make things more digitally and make them more digitally easier. But because this is Japan, all it does is it gives me actually more paperwork, the exact opposite thing it was designed to do. Now, whenever I get a contract, I have to photocopy my number card or provide my number card details, and it's never digitally. It's always on paper. We sent you an envelope. Please photocopy these details and write them down on this paper, and then send it back to us in the enclosed envelope. All right. Well, I lost my number card because it fell out of my wallet, I'm guessing, as I was ootin' a boot with my kids. And I filed a police report, and it turned up a week later, but I had canceled it because I needed to get a new one, and it's pretty sensitive information. You can do a lot with your My Number card, and who needs it floating around? Okay, so I cancel it, take the police slip down to the city hall, and I say, I need a new one. They're like, fine. Because we're so digital, this will only take a month and a half to get a new card sent in. Okay. We're going to send you a mail. We're going to send you letters. And we're going to send you postcards. And then you have to go and make a reservation online. I'm like, okay, well, at least that should be simple. When can I come in? The minimum advanced reservation is 5 days. All right. So I make the reservation for today. And I go in with my card. And then they make me write down my name and address again while I'm waiting in line. Then they give me more paperwork, and I have to write down more numbers on the paperwork. And then I'm waiting there with more paper and more numbers and more paperwork. And I wait for the person to call my number, and I give them 1,000 yen, and they make me do more paperwork, but it's on a computer. Now I just type in the numbers again on the computer, and then they give me some more paper after that to verify that I was in there to get my new easy-to-use digital ID number card that only took a month and a half to process, and I had to pay for it at the same time. Convenient future is now. The digital transformation is complete. This country, doesn't matter what you do. It's great. I'm not going to say I hate this country. It needs to blah, blah, blah. I'm just saying the boomer stank. You can't wash it out of this place. Sorry to say. And everything has to be paper to paper to paper to paper for the digital. So the digital application just in its wake creates reams and reams of extra paperwork for no apparent reason with a month and a half delay. Now, there's a card out there. I think the company was called Dynamics, and I was researching this company pretty heavily back when I was working in big tech as a researcher for an AI school for one of Japan's top 3 telecoms. And this person had a bank card, and it was like this brilliant invention. It had its own SIM card inside, and it had a thermal charger for its battery system. So all you had to do was like heat it up. You could like put it between your hands and rub it like a primal fire starter type of thing, and that would give it enough juice. But it was mostly a digital. It had like a very simplistic digital interface. It was electronic ink and a little button with a chip inside. And you could store your banking information, like your bank cards, on this one card. and you would push a button and it would switch to the next card, a credit card, and the expiry dates would change. So you'd have to register it in advance. And I get that that's kind of abolic, but the idea was that you could lose this card, just go to the bank, they would give you a new one, and with like a authentication verification, you would have all of your details downloaded to the SIM card in this new card, and you wouldn't have to do this rigmarole of a month and a half waiting or going and waiting and canceling and all that. It would just be all handled wirelessly. This was like 8 years ago, and the company was bought out, disappeared, haven't heard from it since. It does do some like point cards things with Tim Hortons, I believe, or did at one point in Canada there. But I was like, why can't we have it this simple? Why can't it be that simple? Because we are in the endless boomerisms. That's basically living in the modern day. All of the health is for the boomers. Everything is for the boomers. And it's been like that forever. It's for like 50, 60 years. Everything's for the boomers. And it's just the boomers. We get some side tripe that we fight over, like ferocious hyenas starving in the desert. But everything else is just like boomer town, man. It's all boomers.
Is it?
Boomers?
Oh, is it?
Boomers. All right, so this is the Japan What podcast, and as I mentioned at the introduction there, we cover a lot of what I believe to be important and modern, non-boomer centric, although you can't get away from it, but the only way out is through. And today we're going to take a look at some things that are going on in Japan, the economy, then we'll take a look at the supply chain wars, and we'll do a little bit of AI. I didn't see a lot of remarkable AI in the news this week, and I searched it pretty actively, but we'll get to it. So this one's kind of this is not the most exciting thing which we should be leading with, but it sets the table for today's podcast. Bank of Japan survey says big manufacturers gloomier. Now, 5 years ago, about 4 or 5 years ago, Japan introduced its new capitalism policy from Prime Minister Fumio Kishida called New Capitalism, Shin Shihon Shugi. But this is it was literally WEF talk. It's the fourth industrial revolution. It's Great Reset stuff. And I was thinking, okay, Sri Lanka did this, and in 5 to 10 years, it went from a pretty good place to a terrible place. It's come back a little bit since then, but it's still like they had revolutions and revolts. Basically what happened is they implemented all these World Economic Forum type green movements and ideological SDG stuff. And within 5 to 10 years, the entire country collapsed because you're spending so much time managing a non-reality instead of managing reality that the reality descends into chaos because you're not managing it properly. Just like a garden. If you have a garden in the woods, the area outside of your garden is the woods. That's chaos. And the garden inside of your garden that's your organized reality. And if you don't tend to it, it reverts to chaos. So that's what we have. And if you tend to the garden, then you're tending to reality, or reality that you would like to live in and see fit and develop and envision. But if you are like, dreaming about space conquests when you don't have a spaceship, then the garden's going to go to pot. So this is kind of what's happening. And there's been some prime ministers or changes in administration since then. Currently, it's the Ishiba administration, highly unpopular. But they said in their when they launched their new administration that they didn't see a reason to change the new capitalism. So they seem to be going along with it. And I've covered this before, and I've had the books, and I've done the interviews, and there's YouTube videos. And I don't mean like conspiracy theory YouTube videos. I mean YouTube videos between administration or business leaders in Japan interviewing people from the World Economic Forum saying new capitalism or stakeholder capitalism or fourth industrial revolution interchangeably with each other. So it's a different word for the same thing, okay? I might say pop, you might say soda, it's the same thing. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And so this is emblematic of the trajectory that we are on. And unless we get away from the angle of the trajectory, that trajectory will just increase or accelerate along the path that it's chosen. And this is the Sri Lankan path. I believe it to be true. Business sentiment among large Japanese manufacturers has worsened for the first time in a year, partly because of worries about U.S. President Donald Trump's tariffs, according to a survey by Central Bank released Tuesday, the Japan Central Bank. This is coming to us, by the way, today, which is April 2nd, 2025, from japantoday.com. The Bank of Japan's Tankan quarterly survey said an index for large manufacturers shows the percentage of companies foreseeing good conditions minus those feeling pessimistic fell to plus 12 from plus 14 in December, the first dip in 4 quarters. Major manufacturers include the key auto and electronic sectors, whose exports to the U.S. are a major driver for the Japanese economy. That's the tariff idea. A shrinking population has also dragged on Japan's growth, while rising wages and a tourism boom have helped. That's speculative. So Donald Trump's tariffs are not really the reason behind this. These are window dressing put there by the media. And it doesn't really explain anything. It just makes us go, oh, Donald Trump. Oh, well, we do have tourism. Tourism is good, but it doesn't increase wages because it increases the amount of people working in low-income earner positions. If you have a tourism boom, it doesn't mean suddenly you need more physicians. It doesn't mean you need more development of the refining of rare earth metals or an additional nuclear power plant team that needs to be, trained up or something like that. It's just people going, hi, welcome to Japan. Do you like Japan? That's it. That's all you get. But the government likes the tax dollars from all the consumption that occurs, right? So we're importing a consumer market or a consumer class, a temporary consumer class that is heavily taxed, but then the taxation just goes right back to the government and doesn't really circulate into the local economy as much as they'd like to say it does. Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba said Tuesday that his government was engaged in the last-ditch efforts to get the United States to exclude his country from auto tariffs. He said he was willing to fly to Washington to directly negotiate with Trump if necessary. You're not supposed to play your cards like that. Anyways, so I'll just read this paragraph here. The U.S. will begin collecting 25% tariffs on auto imports on Thursday, with taxes on fully imported cars kicking off at midnight U.S. time. The tariffs are set to expand to applicable auto parts in the following weeks through May 3rd. Blah, blah, blah. Japan has a lot of investment in the United States, but they also have automakers in Mexico and all these other things. So I'm not sure if how much of this is driving the gloomier outlook. I think it's more about policy than it is about tourists or whatever they want to say it is. That's just setting the table that we're on this path and things are getting gloomier. Next, and I don't mean to be pessimistic. Prior to 2019, I was so bullish on Japan. Great jobs. The money wasn't the best, but the cost of living was pretty good, and it was safe, and just the lifestyle that you could have here, amazing. 5-6 years later, things are changing, and if I'm not honest with myself or with this microphone, why the hell am I doing this? It's not like I make enough money to pay rent with this thing. Japan enforces food supply emergency law amid soaring costs. April 1st, 2025. Yeah, there's been like a nickel and diming in inflation going on for past 3-4 years now. And now I'm just like, I used to get more stuff. All those kind of memes from America or Canada from like the past 4 or 5 years. Now we're catching up to it in Japan, where I'm kind of going, yeah, I used to have, there's more. What happened? Oh, this one's smaller. What happened? Japan's new food supply emergency measures took effect on Tuesday, allowing the government to instruct farmers to submit plans on how they will increase production on key foods, such as rice, if both domestic supplies shrink and prices surge. The legislation is aimed at curbing food shortages as the production of nutritious crops has become unstable against a backdrop of climate change. And what else do you think it is? What other window dressing are they hoisting up for us plebes today? And Russia's prolonged war in Ukraine, known as the European Granary, for the sale of agriculture conducted on its fertile black soil. Well, I'm not so sure about that. Hey, why is everything so expensive? Has nothing to do with our policy. It's about climate change and Putin. Because of, the stuff. In Japan, food prices continue to rise, with government data showing that the cost of rice skyrocketed 80.9% in February from a year earlier, the sharpest climb since comparable data became available in 1971. And this is after the new rice harvest came out, which was supposed to decrease prices, and after the government released its emergency rice stockpile as well. Still, it's up 80.9%. I have 2 kids. You know how much rice we go through? It's like it makes you a little angry after a while because you're like, you're not doing anything. Why is it going up? Why is all my money going? Oh, climate change and Putin? It's not good enough. Under the legislation, 12 items, including rice, meat, soybeans, wheat, sugar, eggs, and dairy products, are categorized as crucial foods. The government will also work to secure the necessary supply of fertilizers and pesticides for production. If supply of the designated foods drops by 20% or more below the average and prices soar, the government can order farmers and food-related businesses to draw up and submit plans to boost production, increase imports, or raise the volume of output sent to market. The law stipulates failure to follow such a directive is punishable. The government will not issue such orders if declining domestic supply can be supplemented by imports. Well, with a major weak yen right now, that means higher costs for the same thing or possibly even worse. It's crazy. So we're thinking like, wow, those farmers, why did they raise prices so much and what the hell is going on? Like, apparently if the price of grain goes up like 20% in Egypt, millions of people will riot or something like that. Now, we're not as poor as that, but where's the balls in this country? Where did they go? Did the jibby jabby shrink all the ballywallies? But the farmers went and protested. They're apparently not doing very well either. Here, let's play a little. This is from the Asahi Shimbun from March 31st. Let's see what this is. So these are tractors, farmers protesting on their tractors in the middle of Shibuya. This is the background. So I'm going to just play this as kind of a B-roll, an auditory B-roll. We'll see what happens. So farmers march in downtown Tokyo, demand income security. Interesting how that works. About 3,200 rice growers and dairy farmers, some driving tractors, held a protest in downtown Tokyo on March 30th, demanding government measures for income security in the agriculture sector, the organizers said. The farmers said they are struggling to continue their jobs and earn a living even after rice prices soared to a record high. They called for income security at the same level as those in the United States and Europe. The protest started around 2:30 p.m., 30 tractors, and after that, participants started to walk from the park shouting, "Protect farmers" and compensation for farmers. Rice prices have risen considerably, but this price level is essential for farmers to continue producing rice. I want people to understand the current situation, said a farmer in his 70s from Fukuoka Prefecture who joined the protest in Tokyo. In addition to surging material prices, we are facing the problem of having no successors. I want consumers to understand this. Makoto Adachi, a 56-year-old fruit grower, said at the protest in another protest in Oita Prefecture. So other protests were in Shizuoka and more than 10 other locations, apparently. So there's that. So where's this all going? The consumers getting screwed. The farmers getting screwed. Who's not getting screwed here? Is this like am I just looking for confirmation bias for my theory that by adopting World Economic Forum policies, you're just going to eventually have a collapsed economy in 5 to 10 years? Is this just me going, oh, look, I'm right because the news said so? Or is there something else going on here? I don't know. But at the macro level, at the meta level, at the 35,000 foot level, you can't really just say, damn climate change. The climate's changed so much in Japan that the farmers have no money and the consumers are getting screwed. I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. Even though I'm going to say climate change exists, I don't like it being used as a boogeyman. And then if you disagree, they go, what, you don't believe in climate change then? So you don't follow the science? Huh? It's a terrible argument and I'm tired of it. Next, and this is kind of indicative of market trends in Japan as well. I thought this was pretty shocking. I knew that this was going on, and of course it always does, because money walks and bull sugar talks. What? I think it's the other way around. Yeah. Money talks and bull sugar walks. 20 to 40% of new apartments in Tokyo's city center are purchased by foreigners. Who are the people who can easily afford to buy a 1 billion yen condo? Now, 1 billion yen, I think, is like $1 million or something like that. This comes to us from dailyshinsho.jp from a couple of days ago, I believe. March 24th, or a week ago. Why is it on the podcast? Again, this is not a breaking news podcast. It's analysis. Will central Tokyo become a place where no Japanese people live in the near future? I think so. End of article. On March 5th, survey results were revealed that gave us a premonition of this happening. The Mitsubishi... Now, before we continue, in order for somebody to buy, somebody else has to sell. And I was thinking that with the decreasing population, what would happen was the population would decrease, the amount of available housing would increase, the price would come down and make it more feasible for people in Japan to start families. I don't think that's going to happen because the real estate developers are probably going to do everything they can to ensure that the prices of their real estate do not decrease. And that's their bottom line. They don't care. They want money. They if they see the value of their real estate decrease by 30%, well, that will tank the company in their view. So no, we can't have it. It's boomerism. It's more boomer shit. And if that's the only reason why it was this on the paper before, it can't go down on the paper now because that's bad. So we have to make it go up on the paper, and that's good. The line must go up. The value must go up at all costs. The Mitsubishi UFJ Trust and Banking Corporation released the 2024 second half developer survey, and the newly added item on the percentage of foreign buyers in central Tokyo was shocking. According to the bank, this is the second time they have conducted this survey. They interviewed 25 developers, and the results showed that 30.8% of developers answered 20% to less than 30% of foreign buyers for new apartments. And 30.8% answered 30% to less than 40%. This is translated by Google, so this is like Japanese way of doing numbers. So that would be like 20 to 29%. 30 to 39%. So that's a lot. Over 50%. Roughly speaking, this means that between 20% and 40% of condominium buyers are foreigners. Some companies even answered that more than 50% of their buyers are foreigners, which means that foreigners are finally starting to occupy the heart of Japan. Kind of like reading a little bit of the xenophobic news. The relentless use of foreigners. They're buying and occupying. It's kind of fun. I get a little rhetorical here on behalf of somebody else. Although, depending on the block that moves in, I don't know if that's good for me or not. According to Yoshikazu Funakubo, a real estate consultant at the bank who was in charge of the survey, although they did not know the nationality of customers, overall, most of them were Asian. Chinese, I bet. The survey also revealed the prices of apartments in the 3 central wards of Tokyo mentioned above. The best-selling price of new apartments in central wards of Tokyo is 228.6 million yen, which is high. Even so-called Japanese power couples are finding it difficult to afford them, but this is due not only to the rising cost of apartment construction, but also the growing popularity of foreigners, said Funakubo. Most of our customers are Chinese, they said. So there's that. A lot of, I'm just reading, I scanned this earlier, but apparently there's a lot of wealth exiting China right now. That's what this is saying. I didn't see it earlier. And a lot of Chinese people, especially rich people in the COVID pandemic, those harsh lockdowns, a lot of people were like, we got to get out of here with our money. And in Japan, you, as a foreigner, you can buy a special business visa. I think if you pay about 5 million yen, you can apply to be, have like, you're going to open a business here. Now you have a business visa. So a lot of Chinese people are using this as a loophole, coming over here under a business visa, and who knows what kind of business they're opening, but they have a lot of money, and now they can buy an apartment and have access to the healthcare and do all of that. So it adds a strain on the infrastructure here for sure. But again, if somebody's buying, that implies that somebody else is selling. So who is selling here? The Japanese. And this is their policy, it seems. Interestingly enough, this connects into the changes in what would you have at real estate trends in Japan? From the Bitcoinist.com, XRP for real estate, leading Japanese company, says yes. So this would be considered insane 10 years ago, but now it's not. XRP is a cryptocurrency or a ledger. What is XRP actually called? XRP is called, let me just find out. I remember XRP, is it called, it's not called ZERP, right? XRP is called Ripple. That's right, Ripple. I remember now. I used to spend a lot of time researching this stuff, but so much of it's scammy. Eventually, it's like, I'll just bail. All right. Open House Group Co. Limited, one of the top 5 real estate companies in Japan, based on money made, now takes Ripple for buying properties. Emi Yoshikawa, former vice president of strategy initiatives at Ripple, shared the news. The move makes it easier for buyers from other places to acquire properties in Japan. On January 31st, 2025, the Tokyo-headquartered company started to accept Bitcoin. At that time, Bitcoin and Ethereum were the only 2 big cryptocurrencies used for payments. Now, Open House added 3 more. Ripple, Solana, and Doge. You can buy real estate with Dogecoin. In Japan now, the Shiba Inu, pumped by Musk. Customers now have 5 different digital currencies to choose from when buying real estate. Digital currencies is the Japanese translation for cryptocurrencies. Kasotsuka, I think it is. That what it is? And I think Ango Sareta or Ango is encrypted crypto. So they use a different way of explaining it. So I just thought that was interesting. You have all these people coming in and buying the new apartments, while at the same time, if you're looking to hide your money, you put it into Bitcoin, then you pop over to Japan, and now you withdraw it from Bitcoin, and now you make a payment and buy it in real estate. Now you have a lot of investment probably securely put away from a lot of prying eyes. So it's definitely a loophole. And then you layer on top of that the business visa loophole, and suddenly it's legitimized in a way. Incredible, huh? Too bad Japanese people hate crypto. And they're not really in on it for the most part. They are until you find those that are, then they really are. But for the most part, it's It's frowned upon because it's a boomer society. It's an aging boomer society. Cash is king. Oh, is it? Look at what's happening. Look in these blind spots and check out what's happening. So that's going to be the Japanese economy for today. Even though all the boomer stuff is dragging everything down and there's these new things that are popping up, making it very accessible for those who are interested or have the means, there is still a mentality in the country where we all must do paperwork all the time, even with our digital technologies, while other companies that abscond from this are making bank, but are they bringing in the right kind of people at the same time? On the other hand, somebody's buying, somebody's selling. Wait, not that one.
Is it?
Buying?
Or is it?
Selling. Boomers. Boomers get a bad rap. I mean, they grew up really poor, but then they got a lot of money, but now they're aging very well compared to their parents on average. But again, it's just like we can't shake it off in a way. They managed to shake off the previous generations because they died in the wars. And now we have all this life extension technology. And they're like, nah, I'm 75 years old, but I feel like being the leader again. Okay. All right. Let's take a look at the supply chain wars. Die for the war. Everybody move. Die for the good. Die for the war. Die for the war. What are we at here? 30 minutes. Perfect. Where's my car? Toyota buyers face long waits due to hybrid boom. This comes to us from New Delhi and Austin, and the reason I'm including it here is because with the supply chain war, which is ongoing and shifting very rapidly right now, this has to do with BRICS versus G7, China and the South China Sea versus all of the other Asian nations that also claim territory there. That's for shipping routes. China moving in with Russia, Russia moving in with China, establishing new trade routes. There's also a new trade route that's like a combination of rail, ship, and freight from like the Russia down through the Caspian Sea, and it connects eventually into India, and it's outside of the U.S. oversight, so they can do whatever they want with it. And that's going to be very valuable in the future, many people are saying. There's the Chinese One Belt, One Road or Belt and Road Initiative. And then there's the American global reserve currency, the dollar and the petrodollar, and Japan being in on all that, and how we're shifting now away from that pretty rapidly. And it used to be China was getting the upper hand because they had the production means to not only create a powerful navy these days, but also to have enough capacity to build large ships and then equip those ships with Chinese wireless technology and payment processing and access markets in the global south with cheap electronics and cheap consumer goods to connect those people back into China in a way as well. So it's very it's very complex, and it's intertwined. And it's like a spaghetti factory, and it's all being cooked up together, and you're trying to pull one spaghetti noodle out, but good luck. But that's what we're going to try to do. And so this is about Toyota, but this is about New Delhi and also Austin, Texas. And it's kind of an example of how there's the country of Japan, but then there's the global economy of Japan and how it's intertwined with everything. And we're going to keep it in Japan, but kind of look at how its ramen noodles are intertwined around the world and what that means regarding the Panama Canal, ultimately. That's the goal for this segment. Soaring demand for Toyota's gasoline-electric hybrids has left suppliers struggling to keep pace, leading to shortages of parts and months-long waits for car buyers, according to 4 people familiar with the situation. 4 people. Is this what agency does this come to us from? Thomson Reuters, 2025. So take that as you will. Stocks of hybrids are low. Toyota dealers across major markets, including the U.S., Japan, China, and Europe, 2 people told Reuters. Reuters, the surge in demand presents a challenge for Toyota, the dominant player in hybrids, but it also vindicates the Japanese automakers' bet on the technology against prediction by some rivals that battery-only electric vehicles would wipe out hybrid demand. This is very true. When I was back in Canada about a year ago, taking a taxi from the airport to the ferry, the driver was a Sikh, because this is in Vancouver, so they're all Sikhs. And he was driving a Prius, and he couldn't stop talking about how great of a car it was. It's a hybrid. And he even said that he put 1 million kilometers on his previous Prius, and he gave it to his dad or something like that. And after 1 million kilometers, the dad got in like a minor accident, but the car is such like a good reputation that they got a good payout from the insurance claims or something like that. So most people prefer a hybrid. A command economy like China will make people choose electric, but overall, hybrid seems to be the winning bet. Global sales of hybrids, including plug-in models, have almost tripled to 16.1 million from 5.7 million over the past 5 years. Toyota's European customers are awaiting on average 60 to 70 days for new hybrids, about double the duration in 2020. In Japan, buyers are waiting 2 to 5 months for many models, a Toyota website shows. At one U.S. West Coast dealership, Prius hybrids were sold out in mid-February, and just a handful of Camry hybrids were available. In India, an important growth market, delivery times have improved, but still 2 to 9 months, depending on the model. So currently, the production capacity for hybrid parts and components from our suppliers and our in-house parts manufacturing is in line with our annual production plans and our assembly capacity, the automaker said. But there are supply snarls, and this is going to be where we begin the crux of today's supply chain wars segment. Delivery times are causing headaches. Sogata Dasgupta, an Asian developer bank executive in New Delhi, ordered a Toyota Hi-Cross SUV in 2023, but he learned from the dealer in August 2024 that he faced another wait of 25 to 30 weeks. This month, another email arrived. He would have to wait another 15 to 25 weeks. So he gave up and bought just a gas guzzler, as they say. The Toyota Group's top components maker, Denso, has been affected by bottlenecks at second and third tier suppliers that cause delays with deliveries of its inverters, another person said. Inverters convert the battery's current and are used to control the motor. Toyota Group's largest component makers, one of them, Aisin, wasn't able to get rotors and stators from its suppliers, delaying delivery of hybrid motors to Toyota. While the magnets were sourced from Japan and China, the resulting supply issue for Aisin was global, the person said. So there's all of these sort of supplementary things that need to be supplied and shipped and sent and made and fabricated. And once those start getting screwed around with, and if you have to rely on people like China, faced with component shortages, Toyota may look to other suppliers and is considering making inverters in the country, two of the people told Reuters. Toyota didn't address Reuters' questions, blah, blah, blah. So these are the supply chain wars. Is this being done deliberately, or is capacity being also shared across rival supply chains like the BRICS? So if you're in China, why would you supply other people with rival supply chains ahead of your own? Ideally, you would get as much of them into your country as possible, promise them the moon, and then just deliver moon rocks, and then claim the moon for yourself, which is what China's also doing, to supply your own supply chains. Just makes sense. Now, this is a supposition or an interpretation on the data on my point. I can't point fingers with a smoking gun and say, aha, like I did a few weeks ago with the anchor that was patently designed to cut undersea cables or submarine cables from a Chinese university, published by the Google patents. Well, that's one thing that's kind of a smoking gun. Certainly something. But this it is somewhat hypothetical, but As we're moving into the supply chain war, where does it go and where does it lead? Well, one point of the G7 side is its obsession with green ideology. And I hope Japan can get away from this, because this next one kind of indicates long term, even if you have a rival nation like China who's going to screw around with your secondary or tertiary components, you might be able to build your own. But with the different kind of a cult, the green cult, you can't understand how they're going to operate at all, especially for long-term, large-scale infrastructure projects. Get a load of this. This is from today. It's from, where's the source? Agence France Presse, AFP. Japan wants to become a hydrogen fuel leader to meet its net zero goals. Okay, we're opening the door to the climate cult. But one blockbuster project is hanging in the balance over questions about its climate credentials. You would think that it wouldn't have climate credentials if it's a net zero goal, but you're dealing with a cult. And they're going to say there is. The hydrogen energy supply chain is billed as $1 billion attempt to ship liquid hydrogen from Australia to Japan. However, cold feet about the project in Australia means the hydrogen energy supply chain will source hydrogen from Japan to meet a 2030 deadline for its demonstration phase. Hydrogen sounds promising on paper. While fossil fuels emit planet-warming greenhouse gases, burning hydrogen creates only water vapor. But it has not yet lived up to its promise, with several much-hyped projects globally struggling to overcome high costs and engineering challenges. Now, the high costs and engineering challenges stem from, going back into the climate cult. Hydrogen's climate credentials have also depend on how it's produced. Green hydrogen uses renewable energy. Yeah, so you're going to hook up a solar panel and a windmill to a hydrogen plant, and you're going to supply the world with green hydrogen. I don't think so. People say you can use nuclear power to do so, but then the climate cult hates nuclear power, as is evidenced in Germany, where they just shut down all their nuclear power plants. Green hydrogen uses renewable energy, while blue hydrogen relies on fossil fuels such as coal and gas, with carbon capture technology to reduce emissions. So that's the cost and that's the engineering. Carbon capture means you take the carbon out of the air and you put it deep down into the ocean and store it in rocks in the seabed somewhere. So you go back into the climate cult and you come up with another clown face. You come up with, you're like, what's with this clown thing? And you have a little clown thing on your nose. What's with this climate stuff? Then people start painting your face white. Why can't we do this green hydrogen thing? And you talk to the climate cult and they start putting on really big pants on you and really big shoes. And you're just dancing around with the rest of them like a stupid clown. Brown hydrogen is produced by fossil fuels without any carbon capture. So we have brown, blue, and green. And this is the simplistic, low-resolution terminology that cultists require. What color is it? I need to know now. Green? Oh, I like it. What is it? Blue? Oh, it's a blue. They better have you reduce emissions with the carbon. Brown? No. And that's what the West is turning into. This project aims to produce blue hydrogen in the Australian state of Victoria. With the world's first liquid hydrogen tanker and an imposing storage site near Kobe in Japan, this project had been touted as a flagship experiment. But the HESC, that's the hydrogen electric supply chain, says it aims to eventually produce enough hydrogen to reduce about 1.8 million tons per annum of CO2 from being released into the atmosphere. Okay, what else? What other part of the clown suit are we putting on next? Japan's energy sector emitted 974 million tons of CO2 from fuel combustion in 2022. Is that good? I don't know. Japan's government pledged 220 billion yen, or about $1.4 billion, to the supply chain's current commercial demonstration phase. But to meet this deadline, the project will now source hydrogen in Japan. This has been blamed on cold feet among Australian officials concerned about the project's environmental payoff. They don't care about the energy. They just care about the environmental payoff, whatever that is. But it doesn't matter because you're dealing with an insane cult. A spokesman for Japan's Kawasaki Heavy Industries, one of the companies behind this hydrogen energy supply chain, said the decision to shift production to Japan was taken chiefly because of delay in procedures on the Australian side. But Australian officials have said that it was a Japanese commercial decision. Yeah, because you run out of other people's money if you just try to... Because net zero and this green stuff is another form of communism, unfortunately. I wish it wasn't. I wish it was like, hey, let's put solar panels on all the houses and see what that does. But no, you can't. It's all a sham. It's all a scam. So with that on one side, what's Japan going to do? Are they going to work with these people on large scale infrastructure projects only to have them bail because they are totally irrational? Or do you kind of understand that you have a plant in China and China's developing its own markets and it comes to you and it does, and it's not as good, but at least you can kind of see some sort of market share battle kind of going on, and it might not be the best and you might resource it from elsewhere, but at least you're not dealing with insane climate cults. You're dealing with insane Chinese Communist Party members who have their own brand of insanity, but at least they code it with logic. Next one. We'll just go through a couple of the other ones. OpenAI says it has raised $40 billion in new funding round. This is connected to Japan because the telecom that I used to work at, SoftBank, is heavily invested in OpenAI, and they want to create a new AI infrastructure, and this falls in line with Japan Society 5.0. But I'm putting it into the supply chain because the supply chains are using this more and more now too. It's a loose connection, I guess, but that's what it is. OpenAI says it has raised $40 billion in a new funding round that has valued the ChatGPT maker at $300 billion, the biggest capital raising session ever for a startup. I don't think we should be calling these things startups. They don't sound like startups to me. The infusion of cash comes in a partnership with Japanese investment giant SoftBank Group and enables us to push the frontiers of AI research even further, the San Francisco-based company said in a post on its website. Their support will help us continue building AI systems that drive scientific discovery, enable personalized education, enhance human creativity, and pave the way toward artificial general intelligence that benefits all of humanity. AGI refers to the computing platform with human-level intelligence. SoftBank has said in a release that it is on a mission to realize artificial superintelligence and that OpenAI is the partner closest to achieving that goal. So SoftBank is set to pump 10 billion yen, and OpenAI plans to scale its infrastructure and deliver increasingly powerful tools for the 500 million people who use ChatGPT every week. And these things are going to be fueling a lot of the AI agents that come into the workforce and stuff like that. So I just thought I would include that there. Because on the other side, in China, Chinese brain chip project speeds up human trials after first success. A tie-up between a Chinese research institute and tech company said on Monday that it aims to implant its brain chip into 13 people by the end of this year, in a move that could see it overtake Elon Musk's Neuralink in collecting patient data. The Beijing-based Chinese Institute for Brain Research and New Cyber Neurotech has inserted Beiniao No. 1, a semi-invasive wireless brain chip, into 3 patients in the past month and has 10 more lined up for this year. State-owned New Cyber has ambitions for an even larger trial. Next year, after getting regulatory approval, we will do formal clinical trials that will include around 50 patients, Luo told reporters. The acceleration of human trials by these companies will make it the company with the largest number of patients in the world, underlining China's determination to catch up with leading foreign brain-computer interface developers. Neuralink is working on wireless brain chips, but video published by state media this month showed patients suffering from some kind of paralysis using the Beiniao No. 1 chip to control a robotic arm to pour a cup of water, even transmitting their thoughts onto a computer screen. Since news of Beiniao No. 1's successful human trials came out, we have received countless pleas for help. It goes on from there. So the reason I'm including this alongside the other one with the supply chain wars is that SoftBank is pushing more and more into America, and it seems Japan is not sure what to do about that. So they're trying to play both sides. But imagine if, like, there's 100 million Chinese people with brain computer interfaces, installed, and they're linked up at the same time. What would that do to a supply chain? What would that do? Like looking at stocks and analysis and buying and selling and bartering and stuff like that. Could you imagine 100 million Chinese people with brain-computer interfaces operating a global supply chain? And we're in the West, we're still going like, well, here's my address that I wrote down on a piece of paper. Can I please have a card? I don't know. And I know that China is not like this tech super paradise, but the level of technology that they are achieving right now is notable, and we should be looking at it because it will be leveraged into the supply chains in the future, where they might be able to make quicker and faster and more collective decisions. 100 million Chinese, all with their own brain-computer interfaces. And we're sitting here asking ChatGPT for orange juice recipes or something like that. Moving on. Japan's Rapidus gears up for test production of next-generation chips. That's going to be a 2-nanometer chip. Test operations underway for autonomously navigated vessels. This really should be in this Japan Society 5.0. I think I'm just going to combine them.
The fourth industrial revolution will enable us to create a new society. Artificial intelligence will transform the big data collected through the Internet of Things into new wisdom. Society 5.0, a technology-based, human-centered society. The fourth industrial revolution will raise our standard of living and solve various challenges we face. It will, for example, free us from the stress of driving, allowing us to safely visit anyone, anytime. We will have access.
All right, I'll stop it there. That's the Japanese government's Japan Society 5.0 promotional jingle. And when I was putting this together, I didn't have much time today. I thought it would flow, but I realized that I just really veered off into advanced technology. And I thought it would be like supply chain-y, but I don't think it was supply chain-y enough. So I'm just going to do it live and do that. This one here, I thought I would look into it. The chip maker one is impressive because they want to make 2-nanometer chips in Japan, and that will be used for the world's, next wave of data centers and all that. So, test operations underway for autonomously navigated vessels. This is the self-driving segment. Takehara, Hiroshima Prefecture. The Yukihime Smart Sea Bus made only one blunder during a test cruise when it needlessly slowed down and made a turn. Quote, a beacon light could have been mistaken for another vessel, end quote. Kyoji Yokoyama, captain of the 19-ton Yukihime, said. That day, however, Yokoyama never switched the automated navigation to manual mode, underscoring the advances made in self-driving technologies in the maritime industry. The eventual goal is fully automated unmanned vessels that can help deal with expected labor shortages in the industry. 8 Knot Inc., a business venture based in Sakai, Osaka Prefecture, is testing its autonomous navigation system on the Yukihime, usually late at night on weekends, through the end of March. It is the first autonomously navigated ship placed on a regular route in Japan, and the boat is designed to automatically slow down whenever it is expected to cross the path of another vessel, thereby negating the need to take evasive action, the officials explained. The Yukihime is equipped with a camera, a device for acquiring location data, a radar to detect movements of nearby ships, and sensors to measure the boat's inclination. The vessel is also fitted with a system to integrally process similar information to control its rudder and engine. The compact boat featuring the distinctive camera at its bow was moored in the pitch dark of night at a pier in Takehara. It goes on from there. I just think that that's a significant move that they're allowing these things to be piloted on the water now in Japan. And it would be fine for me to be on these little short haul trips and have just be driving autonomously for the most part. I don't see how it could go too horribly wrong until it does, but until then, Maybe it's okay. Don't know. Back into the supply chain war. Die for the war. Everybody moves. Die for the good, for the good. Die for the war. Die for the war. And this goes back to China, Japan, and AI, and tariffs, and all of that. So it brings it all together. This comes to us, and it's also about Chinese posturing in a way, and how they use posture, even if it's kind of fake, to create a narrative that people will agree with, whether or not they know it or not, that it's fake or true. It's just, you get ahead of the truth first, and now you kind of claim ownership of the narrative. So this comes to us from April 1st. China, Japan, South Korea will jointly respond to U.S. tariffs, Chinese state media says. You're like, what? China and Japan are so angry at Trump that they're going to go along with China? Well, we'll see. China, Japan, and South Korea agreed to jointly respond to U.S. tariffs, a social media account affiliated with Chinese state media said on Monday. An assertion Seoul called somewhat exaggerated, while Tokyo said there was no such discussion. But they put it in the headline at the japantoday.com. Well, that's an interesting position. Are they compromised? The state media comments came after the three countries held their first economic dialogue in 5 years, seeking to facilitate regional trade. Japan and South Korea are seeking to import semiconductor raw materials from China, and China is also interested in purchasing chip products from Japan and South Korea. All three sides agreed to strengthen supply chain cooperation and engage in more dialogue on export controls, the Post said. Now, if it sounds a lot better than investing a lot of money into Australia only to be constantly going in clown world circles in a climate cult. I know what I'd rather do. When asked about the report, a spokesperson for South Korea Trade Ministry said the suggestion there was a joint response to U.S. tariffs appears to be somewhat exaggerated, and Japan's Trade Minister Yoji Muto said there was a meeting of trade ministers at the weekend, but there were no such discussions. So the Chinese media says it is, and then the Western media says it is, but then in the first paragraphs of all these news, they say, no, it's not. But shouldn't the headline say the exaggerated? China makes exaggerated claim on U.S. tariff response? Or does the media hate Trump so much that it doesn't matter to them? They'll just say it anyways. Where is this from again? Thomson Reuters. Yeah, they don't like Trump. Well, he's kind of crazy these days, to be honest. He seems pretty pissed off. I can't blame him for what they put him through, but it's one of those things in America where it doesn't matter where it changes direction. It's a bunch of crazy stuff keeps coming out of the box. It's like, now we're going to bomb everything else we don't like. We're going to bomb the other people. We spent too much time bombing those people. Now we need to bomb the other people. It's like, okay, I get it. But the main thing for today is the Panama Canal. And I was thinking of how to wrap this into a Japan-focused thing. So there's the Panama Canal. And this is like this is where the North and the South and the East and the West meet via a canal. And it's one of the most important things ever made for trade, for security, you name it. Panama Canal, whoever controls it has a giant advantage in the world for the supply chains, the supply chain wars, controlling access, everything. But the Panama Canal is very complex, and there's also a lot of sort of peripheral and side markets that are along there as well. You can imagine that there's so much activity going on there that there leads to be a lot of management with the ships coming and going, not just the going through the canal, but there's all sorts of side businesses there as well. And what's happening now is Trump is saying we want to take the canal, and BlackRock was apparently going to buy two ports owned by Hutchington's, which is a Hong Kong-based firm. Now it's owned by China. And they agreed to it, but now China is putting a stall on that. So the idea here is, with Japan kind of caught between investing in America to preserve its own identity or to investing in the G7 supply chain routes, which involves getting entangled with supply chain cults, or moving into China to have a regional trade partner that's getting exponentially better at what they do. What are the implications with this? So I'm going to read a little bit, and this is like I was consulting with Grok, with AI, about this, and it would feed me back some information, and I would edit it and feed it back, and we kind of merged the line of thinking into a Japan-centric take on what is Japan's role and what does it mean if China or America controls this zone. So let's just take a look here. The Panama Canal and the Hutchinson ports in Panama serve distinct but complementary roles in maritime trade. The Panama Canal itself is a waterway that allows ships to pass directly between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, cutting through Panama's isthmus. Ships move through its locks, essentially water elevators, to cross the 50-mile route, avoiding the long journey around South America. This is about transit. Ships enter, navigate the canal, and exit on the other side. The Hutchinson ports, specifically Balboa on the Pacific side and Cristobal on the Atlantic side, are separate facilities located near the canal's entrances. They don't handle the canal transit itself, but act as major port terminals where ships dock before or after passing through or instead of passing through. These ports are for cargo handling. Ships arrive to load or unload goods like containers, which are then stored, sorted, or transferred to other ships, trucks, or trains. A key function is transshipment, where cargo is moved from one vessel to another, often because a ship isn't going through the canal or it's redistributing goods regionally. For example, a ship from Asia might unload Japanese electronics at Balboa, where some cargo stays for Central America, while the rest is loaded onto a different ship headed to the U.S. East Coast via the canal. Unlike the canal, which is managed by the Panama Canal Authority and focuses on passage, these ports, operated by Hutchinson ports, are commercial hubs for processing and distributing goods, making them critical to the broader trade ecosystem around the canal. A $22.8 billion deal to sell Hutchinson ports in Panama, including the key Balboa and Cristobal ports near the Panama Canal, is facing delays as of April 2, 2025, and Japan's trade interests are closely tied to the outcome. Japan relies heavily on the canal, with 70% of its maritime trade to the Americas. That's uses the canal for 70% of its maritime trade to the Americas, worth over $270 billion annually, passing through it, including electronics and automobiles handled by these ports. The scale, agreed in March 2025 by Hong Kong-based CK Hutchinson to a U.S.-led BlackRock consortium. Now, there's a future that freaks me out. Some sort of weird, shadowy, supra nationalist, like outside of nationalism, international conglomerate in control of major aspects of this trade route. Anyways, this sale has been stalled by China's antitrust review and criticism from Beijing, which it sees as a loss of influence over vital trade routes. Excuse me. The deal signing, originally set for April 2nd, has been postponed, and for Japan, any disruption or change in control could impact shipping costs and reliability, prompting quiet concern from Tokyo, though no official stance has been made yet. So Japan figures in there. So in a way, thinking about it, if China maintains that control, and if Japan makes more alliances with China, would China be able to strong-arm Japan over various other forms of agreement to allow Japan to access the Panama Canal and 70% of its American goods being handled there? See what I mean? So if Japan is like, we should go with America, we should go with the G7, we should go with China, which one should we do? Or if Japan makes a whole bunch of crazy deals with China, and America takes the Panama Canal. And America says, hey, you got to take those deals out of China and put them into America, or else you're going to be paying all these fees. Because we don't want you taking advantage of both sides of the situation here. You have to choose a side. That's kind of what's going on here. Japan is a G7 country, but it's also an Asian country. So it's like geographically in one zone, but ideologically in another. And it's at the edge of the empire. And as the edge of the empire begins to redefine itself, everybody and everything within that seam, within that line, also has to redefine itself. The worst situation in those key zones is a place like Palestine, where after World War I, with the British control and then the Turkish control, the Ottoman Empire, the edges of their empire kind of overlapping and falling back and being taken over by somebody else. You're constantly having to deal with a new boss in town. So I'm not sure which path would be the best. Certainly not the eco-fascism, because that just makes everything fall apart. You just invest billions of dollars and then you leave in a clown suit with no money and a bunch of people shouting at you, calling you some sort of capitalist whore. That's all that happens. But if you side with China, well, are they going to have some sort of feudalistic system in the future? Or do you side with America, where all of a sudden you find yourself under BlackRock control? These are weird and odd dilemmas. All you want to do is ship a bunch of stuff through a waterway. You're just like, hey, there's a waterway. Let's make our goods go through there. But in a way, you have to balance a significant percentage of your country's entire economy over a long period of time over such decisions. What would the best decision be? America or China? Well, the first instance, my thinking is America. But then we get BlackRock. Is BlackRock so different from the CCP? Does BlackRock envision a beautiful future for humanity? Or is it kind of like one of those, the foundations of some sort of, 500 years in the future, totalitarian, fascist, science fiction groups of people that ruthlessly rule planets for the control of their resources and will just surreptitiously wipe out any form of dissent with nary a thought, and nobody protests because they kind of are in on it too, like this sort of corporate fascistic bred view of the world that becomes normalized within its operating frameworks. So we're like, hey, Donald Trump's funny. He likes money. Let's go with him. But then you get sucked into a BlackRockian future. Or you're like, well, we're in the region with China. They have rare earths and all this processing stuff. Maybe we can develop with them. And they're like, well, we need you underneath our boot now. We're going to leave you with 5% of the motors that you ordered, and that will be it. And you will find a way to sell those. And if you can't sell them, well, then we will move in and we will sell our versions in your market, or you get nothing. So, or is there some sort of middle ground? I don't really see one. And as the edge of empire shifts and changes and redefines itself, those are the positions you're usually in. And unless you have your own ways to do everything by yourself, unless you're independent largely, then you're going to be reliant on somebody else making those decisions for you in the future. Die for the war, everybody move. Die for the good, die for the war, die for the war. All right, that's going to be the podcast for today. Kind of a weird one, but that's where we are right now. And I've noticed that the type of research that I was doing before, it's not yielding the same compact results. And that tells me things are changing. So I'm going to play a song again today, and it's based on what I was mentioning here on the podcast. Of course, it's not all gloom and doom out there, but choices need to be made. So you have to be serious about that. And I'm not sure if a lot of people are. Anyways, so this is a song made by AI, and it's from Suno, and I get Grok to make sonnets for this, and then I edit them a little bit, and we put it together and go back and forth between these two AI systems and myself, and eventually come out with something that's hopefully good enough to listen to. I'm going to play it and then come back on the other side. All right. Goes on from there. Doesn't know when to stop. So that'll be it for today. Remember to go to the podcast website, MatthewPMBigelow.com. Check out the links there for yourself and some of the photos and more. If you're willing to donate, consider PayPal at paypal.me/JapanWUT. That's paypal.me/JapanWUT. Till next time, everybody, I bid thee a very warmful and heartful Ja Mata. No.